In this video, I'll give you 3 things to check before you go on any long drive or road trip. Alright guys, so the first thing you do is grab your adventure hat. Throw it on and get ready to have a blast because road trips are fun! Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a moment to thank you for watching my video and thank you, plane, for flying over me. But anyways, if you haven't already subscribed please. I would love the support. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and leave a comment about your road trip and some other things you may check before you go on your road trip. Anyways, back to the video. Thanks guys. Once you got your hat on, it's nice and snug. Secure it up so it doesn't fly off your head as you're driving. You want to check your car. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to have you guys check is the tires. So, you need some type of tire pressure gauge. Mine is right on my drill that has a pump, so I could actually inflate it from this as well. It's a really nice option if you don't have an air compressor. So there's 2 main things you want to check on the tires. That's the tire pressure itself. So every tire on the sidewall should tell you what the optimum pressure kind of is, or inside the driver door. Cold tire, which is a tire you haven't driven on. The front, you want 33, the rear, you want 32, and then the spare, you want 60. So we'll check all those tires, including that spare. If you have a spare, check that pressure as well. Make sure that tire is just fine. Check the pressure. So I'm at right about 33. So I'm actually not going to inflate this one. The other thing you want to check is the tire tread. Make sure that there's no weird wear on it. Make sure it's kind of wearing off even. And there's not like one side is way worse than the other, or somewhere where it's kind of bald or it looks like it's bulging or anything like that. Just make sure your tire looks okay so it doesn't explode on you on the drive. Alright, up next we're going to check the fluid levels in our car. The first one I'll start with is probably one of the more important ones, the coolant. You don't want your car to overheat on a long trip. If you don't normally drive your car pretty far, you're not really certain if it's going to overheat. But sometimes these longer trips, especially in the middle of summer when it's 90 plus out, it could overheat, so you want to kind of check your coolant. So, coolant goes in your radiator, and that's the main source of where it's going to go in, which will be right up front, right here. Some cars have this tank reservoir overflow, either way, and on that, it'll kind of show you the minimum and the maximum amount of coolant you want in the system. So I'm slightly below the minimum. Now you want to make sure you keep your car nice and cool because nobody likes being hot and sweaty. Neither does your car. So you gotta keep it nice and cool. While you're in the area, most cars will have their window washer fluid right here. You can see the little window with the water squirting up. You follow this down and there's a tank down there. A lot of times you can't tell how much there's actually in there. So just pop it open and fill it up. And then you'll see it come up the tube. That's a good one to have because you don't want to be on a long road trip and not be able to see outside your windows. Next, we'll move to brake fluid. So figure out what kind of fluid your car needs, dot 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. You know, connect the dots and you'll figure out what kind you need. And in here there's also a side, minimum and maximum. So this is also on the lower end. So I'll go ahead and add a little bit in there. So while we're talking about fluids, I also want to talk about this. This is a fuel injector cleaner. On some older cars, higher mileage cars, you may want to think about something like this on a long trip. This one is just what I had in the garage, it's a Techron. There's a whole bunch of different types out there. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, although I'd love to be sponsored by them or anybody else. Anyways, this you just pour in your gas tank, and then when your tank is empty, you pour it in, fill up your gas tank, and that'll kind of mix it all together, and it just cleans your injectors, cleans all the sludge and the gunk off your engine, inside your engine, which will help it run better. So this is a good idea. It's not a must, but it could potentially help with some gas mileage and save you some money to mod your car. And I'm moving on to my third one, and this one is so important to me that I'm making it its own separate category, which is your oil. Check your oil, because if you watched my last video, I love Subarus, but you need to check your dang oil, or you won't have a Subaru any longer. So, every car has a dipstick. There used to be a commercial that used to say, think with your dipstick. Well, guess what? It's super important. Grab a rag and check your oil level. pull out your dipstick, wipe it off, put it back in, see where you're at. So in this car, these ones are not known. The new engines are not known to burn oil. So guess what? It's close to our oil change, but we have plenty of oil left. So that's a good thing, right? If you watched my previous video, you're already checking your oil all the time anyways. So you already know. Since we're driving a couple hundred miles and it's pretty close to my oil change already, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. Get it done, get it out of the way. One less thing to worry about. You know, you don't want to drive around an old used burnt oil that doesn't lubricate things as well. So I went ahead and bought myself some new oil. This car takes 5W30. Go ahead and change that. And while I'm here, I'm gonna change the filter, and I absolutely love this new engine, and the filter location is right here. That is so amazing, because the old one was underneath some plastic in my Subaru WRX. It's under some plastic and it's a pain in the butt. It's like right by the hot exhaust, so if your car is still somewhat hot, you have a good chance of burning your forearm. But in this car, right up top, nice and easy. Also, good time to mention that pretty much most of these fluids, especially your coolant, hugely important not to fill on a hot engine, because it could just explode and get everywhere, kind of like the AC did in my other video. Anyways, so this is a cold engine. You want to definitely fill it up on a cold engine. Now, oil, people are kind of back and forth. Some people say if you get it kind of warm, not hot, your oil will come out quicker, better, smoother, and you get most of it out. Other people just don't want to deal with the hot liquid, so they just do it on cold engine anyways. I usually let my car run for a minute just to kind of get things moving and pick up some of the particles that could be potentially in the oil, get them picked up, and then that way they'll come right out. And it's gonna thin out your oil and it'll pour out a little bit quicker. Now that you follow those 3 easy steps, you're ready for your road trip. So go ahead and jump in the car, leave me a comment before you leave, and tell me how awesome your road trip is or was or will be. See you guys next time. Faster, no one wants to, whatever. I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah.